Checkers. My great-grandfather and I sat on his front porch. His old red and black checkerboard spread out on a small wooden table. The air was heavy with the scent of honeysuckle and a humidity that made you perspire even in the shade. He leaned his weight on an old black walking stick with an L-shaped top handle. You could still make out a few small knots where branches once came out. I could hear a little dog barking in the distance, a medium-pitched "Arf, arf, arf." One of the neighbors was mowing his lawn with a mechanical push mower. There was a whir each time he pushed it forward, then a pause in the sound when the neighbor drew it back. His wife, Mimi, came out on the porch, her face locked in a perpetual scowl. She started yelling something at him in a loud voice, either because he was deaf or she was angry. Neither of these conditions ever changed. He never looked her way, but laughed softly to himself, and she turned away in a huff and went back inside, slamming the green screen door behind her. My small hand reached out and made a move as he watched. After my move, he stopped and thought about it for a moment and said, "You are pretty good. You're a pretty good checkers player." He made his next move, pushing his red checker up against my black pieces. I saw I could force him to jump me and then take two of his pieces to get a king and move the black checker for a forced sacrifice. The checker was half as big as my palm. He let out another laugh and slapped his knee. "Well, what do you know?" he said, chuckling to himself. "What do you know?" After the checker game, Grandpa said, "Would you like to go for a ride?" I checked to make sure he was looking at me and then nodded my head. His 1949 Plymouth was a long blue-gray curve of metal that started at the windshield and went over the top and down the back all the way to the back rear chrome bumper. His trunk was part of this curve, but had a small chrome handle which, if you twisted counterclockwise, would open to reveal a large carpeted area for storage, plus a spare tire. Along the sides ran a long black running board, complete with a chrome trim. The windshield formed a V shape similar to an airplane, with small wipers mounted on the top of the square flat windows. I looked out the front. At the far end of the hood was a statue of a nude lady with erect wings, with one hand pointing up towards the sky as if she saw something, although her gaze was straight ahead. The dashboard was made of dark polished hardwood. Before he started the car, he pumped the gas pedal a few times to get gas to the engine and then pulled on a little handle marked choke. With a puff of smoke, the engine came to life, causing a slight vibration in the car. The seats were made of soft cloth and had a smell similar to Johnson's floor wax. On each of the side windows was a small piece of glass that swiveled. I turned one end to direct the air in towards my face. Grandpa turned the handle and cranked the driver's side window full down, and after watching how he did this, I followed his example, although I had to use two hands to get it to move. The door was cushioned with striped, soft wool cloth. He shifted into reverse on the steering column, placed his arm over the seat, turned to look back, and then gradually let out the clutch. As the car backed up, the tires made a crunching sound on the composite driveway until we felt the bump of the lip of the driveway. The black tires came to a halt and the words Plymouth were upside down on the shiny aluminum hubcaps. With another puff of exhaust, we were off. As we picked up speed, I leaned out the window to feel the fresh air on my sweaty face. We drove down a country lane until we came to a tall willow tree, and Grandpa pulled over to the side and leaned over past me to the glove compartment. I noticed long white hair coming out of his right ear. After he found his pipe, he unrolled the tobacco pouch and filled the pipe. He struck his match against the rough black stripe on the side of the matchbox and filled the car with an aroma of tobacco and cherries. With a few long inhales, the pipe bowl glowed red, and then he inhaled the smoke in a more rhythmic way. We sat together, neither of us talking, looking out across the shimmering heat coming off the hayfield, watching the slight breeze move the skirt of green leaves around the weeping willow. Grandpa, I asked, "Why do they call it a weeping willow?" He puffed on his pipe a few more times and then looked off to his left out the side window. It took me a few minutes to realize that he had not heard me, so I tapped on his leg. He took the pipe out of his mouth and exhaled a puff of smoke and said, "Yes?" "Grandpa, why do they call it a weeping willow?" He paused for a moment and then got a faraway look in his eyes. Just then I remembered that old photo of him in his bedroom on the chest of drawers, wearing his army uniform in World War I. Young and cocky, he had one leg on the running board of a battlefield ambulance and one arm resting on the open window. I heard Mimi tell my mom that he never talked about the war. His hearing had been damaged by the exploding artillery shell that hit the hospital tent.